All right. The Hammerhead machine gun has just re-arrived in Destiny 2, and this thing was an absolute beast way back in the day. Season of the Forge, Season 5. Does anyone remember that? That was way back in, I believe, 2018 that this gun was brought to us, and this is easily one of the smoothest, cleanest sounding machine guns, and Bungie did us an amazing service by giving it some incredible perks. Some perks that are going to make it very desirable to grind for the god roll while doing the onslaught activity. And keep in mind that they're actually updating the onslaught activity, making it much more rewarding to actually go to wave 50. So I know a lot of people out there are doing 10 wave resets and stuff like that. So it should be, when the update does go live, it should be much more advantageous to actually go to 50. We'll see, time will tell. Some people probably still just do 10 wave wiping and stuff, but I think 50 might actually be worth it, especially if you're grinding for the god roll of this bad boy. So let's give a quick breakdown of all the perks, and we're going to be talking about the boogeyman in the room, which is the Commemoration, because obviously this is a void 450 RPM machine gun, and when we're talking about void 450 RPM machine guns, we have to talk about the Commemoration because this thing has been a beast for so long. So just before we go over the exact god roll of this, the Commemoration is this void machine gun we get from Deepstone Crypt, and it has killing tally in the right hand column, and it has reconstruction in the left. Now you can use other perks if you like as well, but the usual god roll that most people have is going to be that reconstruction killing tally roll. And the reason why is because you get like a massive magazine, and then with that magazine you can get those stacks of killing tally easily and just clear a room of ads in challenging content. So this is a really strong weapon, Commemoration. So how does Hammerhead compete against that? Well, it gets double damage perks. Of course, if you're going to try and beat a weapon that's as amazing as Commemoration is basically perfect. The only way to beat it would be double damage perks, and that's where we got Rampage in the left-hand column. We're going to go through an entire breakdown of everything it has, though. First thing we do need to mention, though, is that its origin trait is that new one where you're going to get grenade energy for using a light subclass and melee energy for using a darkness. So that's actually a really nice origin trait. Commemoration does have a comparable one, though, where it has Bray Inheritance, where you're dealing damage regenerates a small amount of ability energy. I believe that this one is going to be a little more potent, a little more powerful for giving you that grenade or melee energy, though. So should be a slightly better origin trait. I'm going to give the nod to Hammerhead on the origin trait. On the right hand column here, we got Surrounded, which is going to, of course, increase the damage quite a bit, but you don't really want to be surrounded when you're using a machine gun, even though you are clearing ads. The reason why is because machine guns actually have excellent range. They can shoot well across the map while still hitting full damage, so you might as well utilize that range and not use Surrounded. Surrounded is more for like sidearms, SMGs, shotguns, things that require you to be close range. And so we're not going to use Surrounded as our go-to perk for Hammerhead, although it just does need to be said that Surrounded is usually a really good perk, especially in PvE. Then we have Onslaught here, which is always a fun perk to use, especially if you reminisce on the days of Breakneck. This thing will speed up the RPM of it, so it's going to go from 450 and go up to a 30% decreased fire delay. So it's going to be turning into an absolute bullet hose. Now, Onslaught is not going to be our desired perk because you're just going to run out of ammo. So if you use Onslaught, you're going to empty the magazine a little too fast and then have to deal with the painful reload of reloading a machine gun. However, it should be said that you could use Onslaught with something like Envious Assassin and have a huge magazine, or Rewind rounds and have just a massive magazine, so that way you could like actually get the full use of Onslaught and get that like increased fire rate and shoot just a huge magazine. So it's not necessarily the worst synergy with Envious and Onslaught, or Rewind and Onslaught, but I don't think that's the god roll or the desired roll that most of you are going to be chasing for. Then we have High Impact Reserves, which is going to do rounds at the end of the mag are going to do more damage. Definitely not as powerful of a damage perk as the next one we're talking about, which is Killing Tally. This is the one you want to go for right here. We got weapon kills grant a stacking damage buff until you either stow or reload the weapon, and it goes up to a maximum of 3 stacks, 10, 20, and 30%. Very simple perk, works so easily and so simplistically, right? Just get out there, get those 3 kills, and then you got those max stacks, and then you're mowing all the ads down, and you don't have to worry about the timer running out. As long as you keep the weapon out, it should continuously have that perk, which is really nice. So a lot of the damage buffing perks, they have a timer and they fade away, but Killing Tally doesn't. So it's one of the nicer ad clear perks, and that's usually what you're using your machine gun for. Just as a side note, I know some people out there, they're very adamant about machine gun DPS on bosses. It's not necessarily the worst thing. I mean, it's better than shooting, I guess, a primary at the boss most of the time, right? But machine gun DPS is usually not the most optimal. So usually when we're using a machine gun, it's for ad clear, it's for killing majors, it's for killing champions, things of that nature. Next up, we have Target Lock, which is going to be just shooting that same target is going to ramp up in damage. Again, this kind of has an issue of like the identity of machine guns more than anything, because if you're shooting red bar enemies, for example, you're not going to really get those stacks of target lock too high. And if you're shooting a target that does have a lot of health, then you might not want to be shooting a machine gun at it. Like, for example, if you're shooting a boss, you don't really want to shoot a boss with a machine gun. And even though target lock would help that, it still doesn't make it like the meta or powerful. Like, you'd be better off just shooting a rocket than shooting a machine gun with target lock. So we've gone down to the new perk, Desperate Measures. Haven't actually tested this perk out myself. Haven't heard anything too crazy about it. I don't think it's a perk that everyone's chasing after right now in terms of damage. So I'm going to say it's an okay perk, but not nearly as good as Killing Tally. And then lastly, we have Tap the Trigger here. And this is going to be more for a PvP god roll of Hammerhead. If you want to take this thing out in PvP, this will certainly be one of the better options. So that way it'll be super stable, especially upon initial trigger pull. Now we're going on to the left-hand column. We got Destabilizing Rounds. Not a bad option. I actually do like this perk quite a bit. Makes all the enemies nearby volatile, which will allow them to explode, which allows you to clear those ads really efficiently. Can synergize really well with certain void builds as well. So definitely can't knock the Destabilizing Rounds, but it's very hard to overlook Rampage being in the left-hand column. I mean, Rampage and left-hand column, this is not usual, right? Usually Rampage is in the right-hand column, but since it's been falling in popularity comparative to all the other damage perks, Bungie's trying a funny thing, and they're going to take the less popular damage perks, I guess, and just throw them into the left-hand column for some weapons. Or at least this is the first we've seen of this, right? So this is a damage increasing perk in the left-hand column. That's wild. So we got double damage perks, Rampage and Killing Tally, which are going to work perfectly in tandem with each other. You're going to get one kill with Killing Tally, which is going to give you a 10% increase. And then that's also going to proc Rampage, which is going to give you another 10% increase. And then you're going to get the second kill, which is going to give you a 20% increase on top of that, while also the 21% increase from Rampage. And then finally, when you get your third kill, you'll get the 30% increase from Killing Tally, plus the 33% increase from Rampage, simultaneously stacking and working together, meaning you're going to be mowing the ads down like crazy. You're going to be, anything that's a red bar is going to get probably one shot. Majors going to get two tapped. Champions are going to get absolutely schmelted from this. This is definitely a really exciting perk combination, and something that will be very desirable for doing, for example, the new raid in contest mode. This will definitely be a weapon that people will have in their arsenal, something that they'll want to have if you're doing Grandmasters, if you're doing Legend Onslaughts, if you're doing anything challenging. This is definitely going to be one of those weapons that you're going to keep. And then we have Feeding Frenzy here as well. So this is obviously just going to make it so you can reload a little bit better. This is going to be a less desirable perk. We don't want to focus mostly on the reloading. We'd rather have the damage or maybe just a massive magazine. 4 times the charm, not always a bad perk. However, we're not the same thing with the identity of machine guns. We're not just shooting at the crit and constantly getting all these procs. We're usually just clearing the ads. So this would be good if we were using it for like melting a boss, but it's not really the goal of machine guns. Envious Assassin, an excellent perk here. And we'd be able to get a massive magazine, which could synergize with obviously Onslaught or really any perk. I mean, anytime you can get a massive magazine, it's always a good option. However, I would argue that if you're going to use something like Envious Assassin and Killing Tally, really just go use Commemoration. Just go use Reconstruction, Killing Tally, Commemoration. I don't really see the point in using Envious Assassin or Rewind Rounds and Killing Tally when Commemoration is right there, and you can just craft the exact god roll you want. And you can get the enhanced perks on them as well. So if you're going to use Hammerhead, you want it to have a different identity than your Commemoration, and you want it to do something that the Commemoration can't do, which is double damage perks in my opinion. So we're going to gloss over Envious Assassin and Rewind Rounds, even though they are excellent perks on a machine gun, giving you those massive magazines. And then lastly, we got Over Under. We got deals bonus damage to targets with over shields, deals a small amount of bonus damage to combat shields. This perk, I've heard nothing about this perk. This is a perk that I don't see anyone using anywhere, so we're gonna say this is a F tier perk at this point in time. I don't see anyone using that. Now the magazine on these weapons is actually really important. Keep that in mind. You want to have something to complement the playstyle of this. So we're going to go with appended mag, not extended mag, because that -18 reload would make it painfully slow to reload. We are going to have to manually reload this thing, so keep that in mind. You get +9 for appended mag, and flared mag, well, would make you reload even faster, but then you go down to 59 bullets in the mag, so we're going to stick with appended. We're going with fluted barrel for the barrel choice, and the reason why is just better handling is always really nice on these weapons. And then we have, lastly, the masterwork. We're going with a reload speed masterwork because we're going to have to manually reload this thing, and we want to reload it pretty fast if possible. So obviously we'll put a reload perk on the gauntlets as well on top of that. But that's going to be the exact 5 out of 5 god roll. This weapon will be unlocked this Tuesday at reset. Right now, at the time I'm recording this video, the servers are down, so everything's down. You're not able to get into the game. But as soon as you can get into the game, you'll be able to do like you did last week. You'll go to the vendor that's right next to Lord Shaxx. You'll be able to beat the bounty. And then once you beat the bounty, the machine gun will be unlocked. You can focus for it, so make sure you do that if you want to get this roll more than you want to get your midnight coup roll or your mountaintop roll or whatever it is you're grinding for. If you want to focus directly for this, I would recommend that, and that way it'll drop a little more frequently for you and give you a better chance of getting that god roll, or potentially even getting that shiny roll with double damage, double perks rather. If you did get a double perk roll, I'm not sure which roll you'd want the most. Maybe Surrounded, maybe Onslaught in the right hand column to go with Killing Tally. You're mostly just going to use the Killing Tally Rampage roll. And then I guess if you didn't have a Commemoration, you could have an Envious Assassin and Rampage roll. That could be kind of fun. Get the big magazine or big damage based on if you're doing like a GM, or if you're just doing a regular strike, you could just go and use something like Envious Assassin. So all really exciting stuff though. This is definitely a must-have weapon, and make sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all the news in Destiny 2. Let me know your thoughts about the god roll to Hammerhead down in the comments. Smash the like button. I'll see you in the next one.